Hey man, content is king. That's what works.
100%, especially during this time. 100%.
Especially during this time. Show face, right? Show up, show face. All right, cool. We are live on Facebook. Let me just make sure I hit this mute button over here. Good to go. All right, hit record to this computer. Ready to rock and roll?
On the Facebook.
How's it going?
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Business Bros. With the delay and everything. Hernancia
It's
is
as
here.
close as it's going to be.
Yep, Hernancia is here, host of the Business Bros podcast, along with my co-host,
The Insurance Bro, James C.S. with Pipeline Insurance, where we are empowering licensed professionals to effectively add insurance to their existing businesses so that they...
Dude, I wanted to change mine a little bit. I know I was going to tell you, but I wanted to change a little bit. I wanted to say,
Blindside me, why don't you?
sorry, I wanted to say that I want to help you embrace your own marketing, your own branding, so we can help you create generational wealth today and wealth today and generational wealth for tomorrow. Because look, we are going through some crazy times, ladies and gents. Content is king, and so you have this fear of content. You grab your phone, you hold it up, and you don't know what to say. Today's guest, James, I'll let you drop the intro, but today's guest is going to share with us a little bit about how that content creation is going to help you bring your business to a new level. And I got some great stuff that we're going to talk about today.
Hell yeah. Well, I'll start it off like this. Are you insanely ambitious? I know you are. That's why you're going to want to listen in today. Our guest today is an expert at creating business-to-business marketing specifically for the insanely ambitious. This guest has mastered the art of LinkedIn marketing strategies. The LinkedIn strategy he teaches is simple, but the most powerful method to connect and reach out to others. His marketing method has helped generate tens of thousands of connections and warm leads. So if you use LinkedIn marketing for your business, you must connect with the host of the Business Leaders Podcast and our incredible guest today. Please welcome to the show, Frank Aziz.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I love your energy.
Oh, dude. He sounds a lot louder when he's in the studio. Yeah.
Yeah, in the studio. That's what I meant.
All right, Frank, I want to know a little bit about you, man. Tell me a little bit about your background, how you even got into this whole LinkedIn gig.
Interesting. I did web design for a while. One thing about web design is like I was doing these big projects, and the one thing that was the most that gave me the most headache was requesting payment from people that still wanted me to do their content, but they weren't giving me content to provide to the website, to put on the website. So I would literally have like these $20,000 websites, $10,000 was paid, and then I'd have to wait for them to give me content for them to agree to pay me the other 10,000, and they would keep delaying. So that was like, I think one thing I wanted to do was not only provide brands to companies, but I think I really wanted to venture into helping companies grow. And it kind of stemmed from that headache of like having to, collect money from clients who I was doing the websites of. And really, I wanted to really help people grow, help build their brand, as well as do lead generation for them. And I think that, regarding, how to build a business, how to, leverage certain things to bring in new clients, I've definitely leveraged that and have a ton of experience with numerous clients and dealing with a team and having to execute that on a daily basis. I think, some of the insights I've learned have actually helped me grow my business, have helped other people grow their businesses. And I'd love to share, some of those things, and I'll let you lead the conversation.
Yeah, man. So it's funny how that works. Oops, I think we lost your video. Are you still there? Uh-oh, maybe we lost Frank for a little bit. All right, well, we're going to keep going with this anyways. While Frank comes back, welcome to the internet age, right? The Zoom era where we it's funny, James. I was talking to Jeffrey earlier today on the podcast, and as we were finishing the show, speaking of technical difficulties, right? This is something more of what happens in the background. I had Jeff and his dog, Captain Crunch, was like, "Rah, rah, 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 rah," barking all loud in the background.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Right. And so I told, as we were finishing signing out, I thought to myself, oh, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a parody video of, oops, did I lose you too, James?
I'm still here.
Oh, okay. I don't know what's going on. I'm losing images. Anyways, I was like, I'm going to make a parody video of our experience with Zoom. Like, I think that would be so funny, dude. Like it would just resonate right now because everybody in the business space is using Zoom. So I gotta do something like that.
What song are you gonna use?
I don't know. All I want to do is I'm a zoom. That's the one that popped into my head. So anyways, when we get Frank back, I'm gonna share a little bit about this whole content space, dude. I mean, Frank is a big LinkedIn guy, and I wanted to talk to him a little bit more about podcasting and creating content because that's one of those big
in LinkedIn.
Specifically in LinkedIn. So for those of you who aren't on LinkedIn, LinkedIn is very much business based, B2B, B2C type communication. There's Frank. He came back.
Sorry about that, guys. Was not expecting that to happen. Not used to my home office here.
No, that's all right, dude. We got you sideways.
Let me see if I can fix this.
I was telling James, dude, every once in a while I do parody videos, and I think my next parody is going to be on my experiences with Zoom. Like my next rap parody video is going to be on Zoom.
Where do you do those parody videos?
Dude, I just write them myself. I record them here with the same equipment that we got here, and then I have a visionary team that comes out and does some of the video production for me. So it's just for fun, dude. You know what I mean? Something a little bit different, and I did a parody video for Gary Vee, and I still hadn't gotten him to see it as far as I know, but it's just all in good fun. Like it gives me something else to do, get my creativity out. So you were talking about before we lost you were talking about having corporations come and create content to put on their website, right? And one of the things that I found is I come across people that have the same issues. I don't know what to create. I don't know how to create this content. And so for me, one of the things I'm launching here is I'm going to help you create your podcast. And the reason why is because I want you to take control of your own branding, your own marketing. We're coming across probably the next major recession due to everything that's going on. And what people do all too often is they cut back on their marketing expense, right? Their marketing budget, for some reason, that shrinks when that should be the complete opposite. This is the time where you should double down on your marketing. But people don't know what to do. So I was like, we can do podcasts, take a long form 30-minute content like this, chop it up into small pieces. And now you have content for the next one episode could give you content for the next month, potentially, if you used it correctly.
So let me give you insight too, as to what I was doing for a while as well. I was doing a lot of like sales training regarding how to generate leads through LinkedIn. And I was using virtual platforms to train like sales teams of big corporations. So that's kind of like my experience and what, not only have I done it for myself. So I think there's multiple layers of executing on something like this, on B2B lead generation. The first layer is like doing it for yourself. Second layer is doing it for other people. And the third layer is doing it for other people and also training other people to do it for themselves. Mm-hmm. And so, I think I can provide some insight regarding, the generating leads and actually maybe putting myself in the shoes of people, the listeners, and kind of give them an idea as to how to grow their business via, content as well as sales. But yeah, you're right, 100%. Like you got to create content. There's like, especially during this time, there is no way that you can make it big or generate enough business to support yourself without generating content these days. It's going to be very difficult, especially in the next like 2 to 3 months. You have a tremendous opportunity to build a strong brand and execute on bringing in revenue because of that brand, when this all boils over, when this all, when we're above water again. So I think it's certainly like really, really important to start focusing on, hey, what do I need to do to build my brand? How do I exponentially grow that brand? And then how do I turn that brand into actual business generation, business revenue?
So tell me a little bit about that, because one thing that we've done really, really well up until this point is we consistently create content. We do our show Monday through Friday, every single day, 4 p.m. ish sharp, right? That's our start time, 4 p.m. ish sharp. And now with the lockdown, I'm doing like 3 times as many. I'm doing like 3 shows. I'm reaching out to other businesses. I'm like, hey, do you need help with your marketing? Do you need help with your exposure? Let me get you on the show. Let me create some content for you. Let me help you out during this time. Let me try to get you more business. But it's not just the show. It goes beyond doing this long form content. What else goes on after that?
So you're saying like, once you do this long form content, how do you turn that into actual business?
That's yes. How do I turn this? I mean, I can sit and talk on the mic all day, but how is it going to pay the bills?
Okay. So what you're talking about is there's the advice I'll provide is dependent on the level of business that the person's at, right? So if this person's a startup, then probably sales activities are going to benefit you the most. You still need to focus on your brand, but have that be the long-term vision. Branding is like so important. And then as you grow, I think when you start making money, when you start having like a established customer base, then I think you could start focusing more on building out your brand, building out content, and only focusing on that. Because to be honest, even as a career salesperson myself, I started in Cutco a while back. I don't know if you guys know what Cutco is. It's kitchen.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I ended up being like top 1% in the entire company.
So do you happen to know Jesse Wright or Eric Gilman?
Eric Gilman is very familiar to me. Yeah.
Yeah, he's part of my 5 a.m. club. He's one of those Hall of Famer Cutco guys.
Yeah, I don't think I got to the level of like a Hall of Famer, but I definitely achieved a level that not a lot of people achieved. But so I think when it comes to like when you're first starting out, who like what's your audience like? Are they mainly people who are first starting out, or are they more established businesses?
We got a pretty good mix of both. We're heavy in the real estate insurance space.
Yeah. Okay. So I would say, depending on where you are in business, you should focus on one or the other more, but you should always focus on both, but focus on one or the other more. And so what I mean by that is, I think too many people, they disrespect other mediums, don't even start on one medium, right? So some people will just focus solely on branding and not on sales. So what does sales mean? What's the differentiating factor between sales and branding? Well, sales is when you're reaching out to somebody, there's no trust involved. That's how I define sales. When there's no trust involved and you're trying to convince somebody either through a presentation or through convincing someone that your product or service is worth their money, the money that they're going to be paying. So that's sales to me, is like trying to convince somebody that doesn't trust you to buy your product or service. Okay. And branding is the way I define branding is putting out content that establishes trust from the very get-go, and then building an internal lead flow that comes in consistently from your content. So it's one to many, and all you're doing is you're building your reputation at scale. That's what
So it sounds to me like if you're talking to a startup, what you're trying to tell them to do is focus on the sales part, focus on, helping and trying to convince somebody of the quality of your product or service. But in the back end, when you're working on your brand, to start developing your email list, for example, or your following, for example, people who you're trying to find your 1,000 raving fans essentially, but you're doing that on the back burner. You're spending time on that, but not the primary function, because you got to pay your bills.
Yeah, branding is a relationship building activity. You're building relationships with people at scale. That's what branding is. And now that takes time. So, before you get to that level where it's self-sustaining, you have to pay the bills, right? You have to make the phone calls or do whatever you have to do, network, whatever the case may be for you to pay your bills. That's important. You should never ignore that, and you should never ignore the branding aspect of it. So, but I think there's a difference in percentage where you focus on one more than the other, depending on where you are in business. So if you're at below, $100,000, whatever the case may be, then I would say focus more on sales, try to get, and then also I would say focus maybe 60-70% on sales, and then 20 to 40% or 30 to 40% on branding. You have to do branding. Like you're not gonna get to a scalable level if you don't do branding. It's just very, very difficult. You can through sales. There are companies that have scaled through sales. I'm a salesperson at heart, but it just makes like doing a sales job consistently on a daily basis makes things more difficult.
It's a grind.
It's necessary. It's a grind. I'm just giving you reality. You have to do the things that are necessary for you to build your business, but making 200 cold calls a day is definitely a grind. It's something I've done. It's something, we still make calls, like, depending, right now the situation is a little bit different. The sales, the sales environment is, the climate of sales right now is a little off. So I think it's kind of tone deaf to make a cold call to somebody to try to sell them like a $10,000, $20,000 package at this point.
Yeah, it's tough.
So you always have to read the market, but I think doing messages, building relationships, and doesn't matter what the medium is. You can use sales or branding, right? It doesn't matter what the medium. You can do sales on a podcast. If all you did, instead of posting like valuable content to people, if all you did was post a 30-minute conversation with someone trying to sell them something, or maybe not even that, you're trying to sell your audience directly something, that's sales, right? Mm-hmm. You're just using podcasts as the medium. Branding is just relationship building. That's all it is. It's like build a relationship. Don't ask for anything up front. Build a relationship. That's what branding is to me. And branding makes sales a lot more easy. Sales makes branding sometimes, if you do it right, makes branding more easy as well. So, but it really depends on, like, you have to pay the bills and you have to build a strong brand, because there's nothing more powerful than people reaching out to you consistently, where you get an inflow of leads to your business who are ready to buy. They know who you are, they trust you, and they have a need. Right?
That is exactly my pitch to people why they should be starting a podcast. You know what I mean? Like you talk to anybody who's been in sales for 10 years, 20 years, whatever, you ask them, hey, where does your business come from? They all tell you the same thing. It's referrals. At 20 years in, they're like, referrals. Well, how the hell do you get there? How do you look at a 20-year-old guy, a 20-year-old just starting out in this world, and he looks at the 50-year-old guy who's been in the business forever, and he's like, oh, I just get a referrals. And he sits back and thinks, oh, okay, well, that's how you do it, right? I just got to get referrals. But what he doesn't see is that foundation that guy's been laying for years and years and years, that relationship, that trust that he's established over time. These people, he's created his raving fans because he's reached out over and over again. He's established those relationships. Yeah. And that's what I'm telling, like, this podcasting thing, it's not the easiest thing in the world, but it's your way of establishing your relationships. It's your way of getting your face and your brand out there on a regular basis so that the referrals start to trickle in. And then before you know it, they're coming in droves. And these are people who want to work with you, not people that you have to filter out that are maybe iffy, kind of never heard of you before.
Yeah. What happens, like, I'll tell you, because my entire sales team, we've focused on both sales and branding consistently. And so, I'm both. I'm both sales and branding. So I can speak and gain the respect of both the salespeople and the marketing people in any company, right? And so when you're making 200 phone calls a day, or like 50 phone calls a day, what normally happens is you're calling people, they show interest, but you don't have their trust. So they don't take you as seriously. There's no like stickiness to the relationship yet. So when you're following up, when you're making cold calls and you're following up with those people, you can sell those people, but it's going to be a very, low percentage of closed sales, right? Because there's no stickiness to the relationship. There's no like, oh, I don't want to like burn bridges with this guy, so I'm going to answer this phone call, right? You make a cold call. Somebody says, yeah, I want to do an appointment on Tuesday. They do the appointment. They're like, yeah, I'm so interested. Let me just ask the boss, or whatever the case may be. And you never hear from them again. Mm-hmm. That happens so often in sales. So like, even like when I talk to like sales reps, I'm like, hey, look, 50% of the people that actually do appointments with you, not like 50% of people that respond to their phone, 50% of people that go, yes, I'm interested, I want to do an appointment with you, are going to ghost you at some point. They're just going to completely ghost you. They're going to disappear. Right? And
it's like that girl at the bar, dude. She gave you the wrong number just to make you go away.
Yeah, that could be it. Or it could be like they feel like they don't have a need. They feel like in their mind they're going to call you when they need it. And especially if it's not like kind of like what is it called? Put out your fire type of service. Like, hey, I need this right now, and people are normally going to put it off. So what happens is, instead of answering your phone call and telling, hey, I'm going to wait till like, you know, the third quarter of next year, whatever the case may be, they kind of ghost you. And then with the full intention to eventually reach out to you when they need the service, when they feel they need the service. But if it's not like a put out your fire type of service, you know, when will that happen? So that's why it's important to, I mean, if that's all you have, and you need to make money, you need to support your family, you need to support yourself, then do that. It's really, really important. You should still do it when you have, you know, a big brand too, but it's also much more effective when you're calling people who are fans of you.
Yes.
So if you can create a system around doing that, that's awesome. So, you know, regarding the sales process, what should you do? There's a few things you can do, you know, in the sales process that make everything a lot more efficient. So, you know, are you, you know, your audience, you have a lot of people, listeners that have like B2B companies, they sell to businesses?
Not so much. In the insurance space, yes, but in the real estate side, it's mostly B2C.
B2C. Okay. So it works. It's the same. And so one industry that I would say is very similar to like a B2B sale is real estate, because, you know, in real estate, you have to build a strong relationship with someone before you gain them as a client, before you get them as a lifetime client. It's very similar to B2B. There's multiple decision makers. You may have a husband, wife, and whoever else, right? The only thing that's more difficult in a business to business environment is like sometimes you have like 7 decision makers, 8 decision makers, which makes it extremely complex and frustrating in many cases. But what do you do to gain people's trust? Well, you know, one thing you can do to gain people's trust is, what would you normally do to build a brand? Like, so you have your online brand and then you have your personal brand, right? So your personal brand, if you're like in a networking group, or if you're trying to gain the trust of one person, right? If you're trying to gain the trust of one person, what do you do to gain their trust? Well, there's a lot of things you can't do, but the things you can do is show up on time to meetings, right? The things you can do are keep your word when you say you're going to keep your word. Things you can do is follow up when you say you're going to follow up consistently, and then do that without giving up. And those things, you know, initially gain people's trust and build your brand a little bit. And then when you gain them as a client, now you have somebody that, you know, wants to work with you. You do a really, really great job. That builds your brand and starts a stronger relationship with that person, right? And so you get referrals that way. So there's no difference. Like, people think like, I have an online brand and then I have a person, like just a personal brand, like like I just have good character. There's no difference really. It's the same thing. They're just different mediums to build a brand. And so keep your word, do those things. And then if you have a huge brand online, you build your reputation, but if you don't provide the service or product and you execute at a high level, then you hurt your personal brand 100%. So, you know, a good example of that is Brittany Dawn. You know, I actually, maybe I shouldn't mention it, but there's a fitness girl. She was on YouTube and she said she was going to do these like customized workout plans and nutrition plans. And she got so big on her social media platform. She got like millions of followers, and she couldn't execute on the service that she said she was executing on. So what happened was like hundreds, thousands of people started making personal videos saying they hate this girl, that they think she did a horrible job. So that hurt her reputation. So, you know, in a business climate, you always like understand that when you build a strong brand and you actually build it to a high level, you're going to get a lot of inflow, and you have to make sure that you can execute on that. But I also, like, when I'm talking to people, I almost have to get them to the point where they even believe that you can get an inbound lead. You can get somebody that reaches out to you based on listening to your content or whatever the case may be. And once I get them past that point, then we can start going, hey, how do we scale this, right? And without a doubt, you have to build an online brand. You have to. I think more so than ever, people are realizing that, people are out there. There are people on their phones like 99% of the time now, especially during the coronavirus. People they're consistently looking at content. They're on YouTube, they're on LinkedIn, they're on Facebook, they're on TikTok, all these platforms. And, you can build a very strong personal brand, and build a whole business off of that brand, right? Elon Musk has a strong personal brand. Steve Jobs is a strong personal brand. People are more bought into personal brands as opposed to like logos and things like that. So I mean, how long has your podcast journey been?
Almost 2 years.
Oh, that's right.
So, yeah, almost 2 years. So right. Over 400 episodes, almost 2 years. And you're exactly right. One of the biggest things and benefits that I've seen from building our brand is the relationships that we've built. I mean, we had almost 300 people that have been on the show, and every single one I could easily reach out and be like, hey, I need this from your industry, or can you help me out with this? And it's what I tell people. It's like reverse prospecting. When you go prospect and you pick up the phone and you're cold calling, you filter through no's to find the yeses.
Yeah.
But when you have your own show and you reach out to people, you filter through the yeses to figure out which yes is the best one that you want to have on your show. Like, it's crazy how that works out after a while. Like, now I can reach out to people. I'm like, hey, I got the show. You want to be on my show? I got over 400 episodes. Almost everybody says yes. It's a completely different dynamic because of the work that you put in on a regular basis. Like, you're bringing something of value.
Yeah. And one thing I found as a byproduct of doing all those interviews as well is just your Rolodex becomes so strong. Your
network is huge.
Yeah. You're like, so you've done like 400 episodes. I've done like 120, 110, 120, somewhere around that range. And like the clients I've gotten just from interviewing people, I've gotten clients just from interviewing people, because most people won't give you 30 seconds for a sales pitch, but they'll give you an hour of time for a podcast, which is crazy.
Which is ridiculously nuts. And that's what I'm trying to tell people. You can use this platform to reach out to those clients that you've always wanted to reach out to, that would tell you no in any other circumstance, but you have the opportunity today. And you can do that by taking control of it yourself. Like, it's so beneficial to you. I mean, just the fact like I have energy behind this microphone. I'm much more articulate. Like, I've become me as an individual. I've become better at my own sales routine. I can go to a bar and talk to a random stranger much better today because of the interviews that I've done than I did 2 years ago before I ever started. Like, personal development on top of what you can do with it on a business aspect is huge. There's no reason why you should be doing it. Speaking of big names, by the way, I noticed you got an event hopefully still happening in July, right? You have, did it move? Did it change? What happened?
We're gonna postpone it. Yeah. We got Dave Meltzer on, who's potentially, he's going to speak at one of our events, or when we postpone it. And then we had like Mark Smith. I've done podcasts with like Patrick Bet-David. I've done podcasts with some pretty big influencers.
Yeah, we've had David on the show. David Meltzer on the show. And one of my favorite things he taught me was be more interested than interesting. I was like, dude, that's genius. That's exactly what I do on the show. I saw you had like David Brownlee on the lineup. Like, you had some big swingers on there.
Yeah. Mark Smith. Mark Smith is actually really popular Democratic candidate for Democratic governor candidate for Utah. He was great. And then Brant Pinvidic, I don't know if he was on the website. I was about to put him on, but he wrote the 3-minute rule, produced the show Bar Rescue. So he's going to be So, I mean, that's another thing. Events are huge. Right now, we can't do events really.
Yeah.
We have to postpone events because the coronavirus, man, is just killing a lot of event business. But yeah, I mean, events are something that really establish a brand too. Like they're so beneficial. Even if you don't make, I mean, our plan was to make a good amount of money at the event, and we were actually on pace doing really well. Like we're selling like $1,500 tickets, and we were at like 41 tickets. And we actually had to call a lot of people to offer them a refund. So unfortunate. But life goes on. We'll make it happen. And we were in communication with World Poker Tour to do a tournament at our event, which was awesome.
That would have been nice. Yeah, see, but again, it's unfortunate because of the situation that you had to cancel, right? But the thing that I want to make sure that we shed light on is you were doing it. It was happening. If it wasn't for these big things that we have no control over, kind of like freak accidents or whatever you want to call it, acts of God. Like if it wasn't for something like that, what you've established as a networker, what you've established as a podcast host, what you've established as a salesperson has allowed you to put together this next step in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I want to speak from like the perspective of someone who lost their job or is going through a hardship right now. It's not that there's not money out there. It's just that the money has shifted. The money is being put in different places.
Money does not disappear. It just changes hands.
It just changes hands. Exactly. So there's money, there's opportunity out there. So if you're listening to this and you're like worried about your paying your mortgage or your rent or paying your card payment, whatever the case may be, understand from this point moving forward that there's a lot of opportunity out there, and you can capture that opportunity. Now, reports say that the unemployment will get up to like 30%, which is crazy. Yeah, so nice. Really more so than ever, not everybody's an entrepreneur, but you should have entrepreneurial tendencies. Regardless of what you're doing, you should have entrepreneurial tendencies. I don't care what you're doing. And the reason for that is because if you don't have those entrepreneurial tendencies, if you don't learn entrepreneurial skills, then when you're out of a job, what are you going to do? Like if you haven't been nurturing and cultivating that skill of like going out and creating something out of nothing, what are you going to do when you get fired? That's the thing. So it's so important to do that.
So funny. I was talking to, I forgot who it was. I think it was one of my business partners the other day. And I was telling him how school districts are thinking about coming back as a distant learning, because I teach high school, right, in the mornings. And so, there's a lot of teachers that that have never done a Zoom call or, developed an online course or anything like that. And for me, I'm like, sweet, I got all my stuff ready to go. I'm going to plop this. I got my ClickFunnels account. I'm just going to create the course real quick for my classroom. I'm like, set. And he's like, you're the only one who's prepared, who's practiced looking at a screen and talking to nobody in front of you. Like the rest of them have to have an audience.
Yeah, but not only that, it's like the buildup of getting to that point. Like it's like a mental thing, like a mental argument you have to have with yourself. Will this work? Should I do this? Should I focus my efforts on this? Should I consistently dedicate time to reaching out to people and getting these podcasts done? It's that like mental effort that you also have to go through that. It's not good to try to put out a fire when and you don't have the equipment to do so, right? And that's exactly what you've done. You've cultivated that. You've built like a strength of podcasting where you can execute that during a time where you really, really need it, where we all really need it, to be honest. Like if you're in business, if you have a job, if you were working in corporate America and you're getting laid off like crazy, people are getting laid off like crazy, you should have already gone through that like struggle in your mind of like, should I dedicate my time to this? Because it's like
your back's against the wall now.
Yeah. People starting out. Yeah. It's going to be like trying to do something like it's going to seem more difficult than it actually is because you're just starting and we're in a very difficult time right now. Mm-hmm. Right. So, but you came prepared. You have, all the things ready that you've learned over the time. Like, I think if somebody is like, oh crap, I actually need to start doing content. I think it's very possible if you just really, really focus to do this to figure this out in like 1 or 2 weeks, but there's specific nuances that you learn along the way that really help you. And that's not to say this time is like probably the most valuable time in all of history where you can start creating content and building a brand. Would you agree?
100%, dude. Yeah. I've heard this on a couple different, I've been listening to many people speak because there's all kinds of content right now with live people that are talking, giving away free information, people just giving away what they know. And I've heard like 3 or 4 people say that the time that you spend now is like 2 to 3 times more valuable than the amount of time that you're going to spend when the world gets back in. right? Because right now, everybody who's been in work, who's been self-employed, whatever, most people are turning this into a vacation. Right. This is a staycation all of a sudden. And if you use this time to just develop that skill, put out content, stop worrying about being perfect and start worrying about being done and just get going, you're going to develop the skills. But by the time everybody else decides to catch up, you're light years ahead. Like you've already done it.
There's people that come out of this crisis with 1 million followers on TikTok, with a million followers on YouTube or LinkedIn or wherever they want to execute on. Now, there's definitely a nuance that has to be addressed, like based on that. Like, you need to be where organic reach is very high. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, if you need to go where organic reach is very high, and there's different qualities and cons and benefits to every social medium, right? And I think that definitely needs to be discussed as well. Like, where's organic reach? Where's there less competition? Where can I build a huge following and then transfer that following to other mediums? I think that also needs to be addressed as well. So if you're going to be on like YouTube right now, extremely competitive, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Organic growth. Like, what do you think about YouTube? Are you trying to?
Oh my gosh. Well, here's some of the statistics that I share with people to get started on podcasts. I'm like, there are over 31 million YouTube channels out there. There's over 500 million blogs, but there's less than 1 million podcasts. And half of those have less than 14 episodes. So like the competition in this podcast space, this is your feeder. This is your monster. This is where you create as much as you can, and you can place it anywhere you want. You want to create content. Guess what? Now you have little snippets that you can put on your TikTok feed, on your Instagram, on your LinkedIn, on your Facebook, wherever you want at that point. But the competition space that you're talking about, like podcasting, has a huge opening, probably because it does take a little bit more work than some of these other ones, but it's there. It's available.
Yeah. But podcasting, like I said, like what I mentioned earlier, was it can be used as a sales tool.
Absolutely.
Right? A really great sales tool. Just ask people for interviews, build a relationship from the very get-go, and then you'll have clients that way, just by interviewing people that would be an ideal client for you. Just do that alone. And then on the back end, you have the extraordinary benefit of building a strong brand, right?
Absolutely. It's craziness, dude. Man, I had fun with you today. A little bit of technical difficulties to start, but it worked out well. All right, real quick before we head out, tell people how they can get a hold of you if they want more information. They want to work with you. How do they get in contact with you?
Well, I'm having a virtual conference. So first way to get a hold of me is by reaching out to me on LinkedIn. My name is Frank Aziz, and I'm on LinkedIn. You can also email me at frank@linkednba.net. And then if you want to come to our virtual conference happening on, I think it's going to be April 27th. So just to confirm, email me. I'll definitely send you some information. But go to capconevent.com to get the full details of that. So capconevent.com, CAPCON event.com, capconevent.com. Go to that website and you'll get the full details of when we're going to be doing this venture virtual conference. So if you want to meet investors, if you want to meet emerging companies that are gathered together to meet and to expand their businesses, definitely come to that conference. You want to expand your business, you want to get funding for your business from a venture capital standpoint, from a family office standpoint, come to that event.
This is where the money is. This is where the big game. This is where the major league players play.
Absolutely.
Awesome, Frank. Hey, man, thanks again for taking the time. I know I got you last minute here. We were booked ahead of time, but it kind of last minute changed with everything that's happening. So I appreciate you playing ball, man.
No, absolutely. No problem. 100%.
Sweet, brother. All right, ladies and gents. Again, if you guys want to get a hold of Frank, virtual, what was it called again? The virtual event that you're having?
Capcon, CAPCON event.com.
Capcon events. Every time you say that, I just think of Capcom, like the video game.
Yeah.
Capcom, yeah. Capcom, but it's Capcon, CON, like Cap.
I've actually gone that a few times. Yeah, for the nerds out there, it's not Capcom, it's Capcon. Yeah.
All right, ladies and gents, that's all we got for you guys today. Peace, and we're out.